Have you ever noticed someone in a room who barely says a word, yet somehow knows everything that's going on? They sit there, quiet, eyes moving, slight nods, maybe a half smile. And while everyone else is talking over each other, filling the silence, they're just watching, taking it in. And then, hours later, they make one comment, just one, and it lands perfectly. Maybe you know someone like that. Or maybe, uncomfortably, that's you. You're the one who listens more than you speak, who notices tone shifts, micro reactions, who said what and who didn't. You often leave conversations thinking, I could have said more, but also thinking, I'm glad I didn't. People sometimes call you quiet, reserved, mysterious. Sometimes they mistake that for shyness, or worse, disinterest. But there's a hidden psychology behind people who observe more than they speak. And it's not just one type of person, there are several, each with a different inner world, a different reason for staying quiet, and a very different kind of power. Let's talk about them. Picture this, a group conversation at work. Everyone's brainstorming loudly, throwing ideas into the air like darts. One person is mostly silent. They're leaning back, arms crossed, eyes scanning faces instead of whiteboards. They ask almost no questions, they don't interrupt, and just when the meeting is about to end, they speak up. They summarize the entire discussion better than anyone else. This type of observer is driven by pattern recognition. Their brain is constantly organizing information in the background. While others are busy formulating their next sentence, this person is connecting dots. They're not quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're still processing everything. Psychologically, this comes from a strong internal orientation. Their attention naturally moves inward. They think before they speak, sometimes to the point where the conversation has already moved on by the time they're ready. But when they do speak, it's usually distilled, clean, high signal. If this is you, you've probably been told you're so thoughtful, or when you talk, it actually matters. But you've probably also felt frustration, that sense of being slightly out of sync with fast talkers, of needing more time than the room allows. You're not slow, you're deep. Then there's another kind of observer. This one feels different. They're quiet not because they're thinking, but because they're watching people closely, almost like a social detective. They notice who dominates the conversation, who seeks approval, who changes personalities depending on the audience. They pick up on inconsistencies, on subtle power games, on the emotional undercurrent beneath the words. You might catch them making eye contact at just the right moment, or reacting with a small knowing smile when someone reveals more than they intended. This observer is motivated by social intelligence, often learned, sometimes painfully. Many people like this grew up needing to read the room to feel safe, so their brain got very good at it. They understand people not through what they say, but through how they say it, when they hesitate, when they overcompensate. They speak less because they already know where the conversation is going. If this resonates, you might feel like conversations are predictable. You can often tell who's insecure, who's performing, who's hiding something, and that awareness makes you selective. You don't want to waste words on dynamics you already understand. The downside, you might feel a little detached, like you're always on the outside, observing rather than participating, safe but separate. Then there's the quiet observer who surprises people the most. They're silent because they don't feel the need to prove anything. In a culture that rewards loud confidence, this can look like disinterest or even arrogance, but internally, this person feels settled. They don't talk just to fill space. They don't jump into debates they don't care about. They don't narrate their thoughts for validation. Psychologically, this often comes from a strong sense of self. They don't need constant feedback to know who they are, so silence doesn't feel threatening. It feels natural. If this is you, you probably find small talk exhausting. You might enjoy listening more than sharing, and you're very comfortable with pauses. Those awkward silences that make other people scramble, they don't bother you. But here's the irony. Because you speak less, people project on you. They assume you're judging them, or that you're hiding something, or that you're uninterested, when in reality, you're just content. And then there's the observer whose quietness comes from something more tender. They want to speak. They have thoughts, stories, opinions, but something holds them back. This type is often highly sensitive to social feedback. They notice every interruption, every raised eyebrow, every moment their words don't land. So over time, they learn to hold back, to listen instead, to stay safe. Their observing is a form of self-protection. Psychologically, this is tied to fear of negative evaluation, not necessarily social anxiety in the dramatic sense, but a deep awareness of how easily words can be dismissed or misunderstood. So they wait. They choose moments carefully, sometimes too carefully. If this is you, you've probably replayed conversations in your head, thought about what you could have said, what you should have said. You might feel invisible sometimes, even though you're constantly present. And here's the important part. Being an observer doesn't mean you're weak. It means your nervous system is tuned to subtleties. But learning when to step forward matters. Not because your observations aren't enough, but because your voice deserves space too. Now, here's the twist most people don't consider. Some people observe more than they speak, not because of personality, but because of energy. They experience the world intensely. Noise, emotion, stimulation, conversations drain them faster than they drain others. So they conserve energy by listening, by minimizing output, by choosing silence over overstimulation. This isn't introversion in the simplistic sense, it's sensory management. If this fits you, you probably feel tired after long conversations, even enjoyable ones. You might prefer one-on-one talks or small groups, and you're very aware of when your internal battery is running low. So you observe, you absorb, you save your words when they matter. Across all these types, one thing stays consistent. People who observe more than they speak often understand more than they're given credit for, but they're also misunderstood more than most. Silence gets interpreted as absence, as lack of interest, as weakness. But psychologically, silence is often a sign of complexity. So the challenge for observers is balance, knowing when silence is serving you and when it's hiding you, knowing when your quiet presence is enough and when the world actually needs to hear what you've been holding back. So let me ask you, when you're quiet, what's really happening inside? Are you thinking, reading the room, protecting yourself, resting your energy, or simply content not to perform? There's no wrong answer, but understanding your reason changes how you see yourself and how you choose to show up. So if this landed somewhere close to home, sit with it for a moment. Maybe reflect on which version felt uncomfortably familiar, and if you want, share your experience. You'll probably notice something interesting. The quiet ones tend to have a lot to say once they decide it's worth saying.